grabbed this picture from the Dollar Tree, and I didn't like the design on the side, and I wanted to remove it. That way I could use it any time of the year and not just fall. I could see there was a clear film over it, and I could feel a little bump when I rubbed my nail across the edge. I peeled the film off pretty easily, but I couldn't get the underneath sticker to come off, so I used the heat gun to scrape it off, but I didn't get that on camera. It left a sticky residue that the heat gun or glue gun wouldn't remove, so I took it to the sink and I used a Scotch-Brite and dish detergent and rubbed it gently, and it came right off. You can't tell it was even there. Because this was going on my porch, I added rocks to the bottom in case it gets too windy. Then I put some floral foam on top of that. Okay, y'all, I bought these daisies off of Amazon, and I didn't pay attention to the fact that they are completely plastic. But that was okay, because they would be great for outdoors. So I spread them out and put them in the vase. I also had this grass from Amazon. To curve the blades a bit, I ran my nail along them to the edge, kind of like how you curl balloon ribbon. I added the grass to the vase and spread it throughout the flowers. To help it pop on the table, I decided to make a trivet from this craft cord that I already had on hand. It can be used in crochet, knitting, and many other crafts. I decided to sew mine, and if you do, then don't start out like I did and do it the hard way. You should roll the cord in a circle like this before sewing, then sew an X. I used a matching thread, but it might be interesting to try a contrasting color. I set my stitch length and width, making sure that the needle and the thread connects the cord, and I just sewed in a circle, keeping the bulk of the material to the left. Once I reached the end, I cut the cord and laid it over the trivet and sewed to the end and ending with a back stitch to secure it. I displayed them on my barrel table on the porch, and if you have not seen how I made that table, go check it out. Next was to make something for my door. I had this basket from Hobby Lobby and dry brushed it with some white paint. I bunched up some more of those daisies and grass and tied a rubber band around them at the bottom to hold them together. I arranged them just like I did before and put them in the basket. They sunk down in there, but I'll show you what I did to fix that. I got this ribbon from Walmart, and I like how it had instructions and a diagram for making bows on the side of the spool. I wrapped the ribbon around the basket and hot glued it to itself with a seam in the front so that the bow would hide it. To make the bow, I drew up 2 loops and tied floral wire around the center. Now, who else gets their hands all tied up when crafting and realize you need a free hand that you just don't have? Anywho, I twisted the wire and then I tied it to the ribbon at the center of the basket. Then I just tucked the ends behind the ribbon. I thought it would make it easier to remove when and if I decide to change it up. I just dovetailed the ends. This is not how you dovetail. This is how you dovetail. I had this pool noodle thingy and cut it in half and put it in the basket along with another piece of pool noodle. I added the flowers and I just think it's cute as all get out. Okay, I had got this pack of 3 burlap garden flags from Amazon a while back. I wanted to attach that same ribbon to the bottom of the flag. I cut the ribbon long enough to wrap around the flag on each side. I got my matching thread, and if you don't sew, you can use fabric glue. It works really well. I used it on a quilt wall hanging and it went through the washer and the dryer and never failed. To keep the edges clean because the ribbon frays, I folded the ribbon, folded again, and held it with clips. I took it to my sewing machine and I started with a back stitch, and I stitched along as close as I could to the edge and ended with a back stitch. I stitched both sides of the ribbon. I stitched along the back side of the flag and ribbon to give it a nice finished look. I wanted to try different methods of putting flowers on this flag, so buckle up, this ride is bumpy. So I cut a circle from cardstock the size of the button I was going to be using. I tried painting on petals with fabric paint and it was not looking good, as in if it was my homework, I would have let my dog eat it. So I washed away the parts that, looked like a bird did his business on, and I did this while the paint was still wet. I dried it with a hairdryer and started over because I'm stubborn like that. For the center of the flower, I sewed on a button with jute string and a tapestry needle. I started in the back and sewed an X pattern on the button, ending in the back, and I tied it together and trimmed it. To clean up the edges, I glued clothesline to the borders of the petals using fabric glue. I used a lighter to singe the fibers to keep them from unraveling. Y'all be safety conscious when using fire. I dabbed off the extra glue, but it does dry clear. For the next flower, I used the yellow craft cord. I singed the edge and cut 2 strings to the length I needed for the size flower I wanted. I checked the placement and then added fabric glue, then put the cord down in a circle and pinching it in the middle. After it was mostly dry, I sewed a button in the middle with jute twine and again tying in the back. I thought the first flower needed a little more something, so I glued jute string around the button. For the third and final flower, I used cotton yarn to sew on the button. Then I used it to make the petals. By pushing the needle to the front next to the button and looping it around and holding it as I push the needle back through next to the button. I brought the needle back through the inside of the outer edge of the loop and then back through the outside of the loop, and that holds it in place. I did that all the way around the button and knotted it off in the back. I wrote the word bloom out with a water-soluble pen. I used that same cotton yarn, doubling the string and knotting the end. Starting from the back, I used the running stitch to sew out each of the letters. If you're not familiar with the running stitch, all it is pulling your needle up through the fabric, going a stitch length, and then pushing it through to the back and repeating it throughout. Here's a close-up that hopefully helps. I've been thinking too much. Help me. I've been thinking too much. Help me. It didn't turn out perfect, but it was never meant to be. I hope this inspires you to create. Thanks for watching. I've been thinking too much.